Welcome to the Lubbock or Leave It podcast, a recruiting specific podcast on RedRaidersports.com. I'm joined by my colleague, Ben Golan, as always. But first, before we jump into it, I want to thank our title sponsor, Carnley Properties. Guys, if you are making a big decision in the real estate market, if you're in the Austin area, if you're a Red Raider, if you even know somebody, it's family or friend that just needs somebody that knows what they're doing in that area, call Clayton Carnley and his team at Carnley Properties. He's a great guy. He's been on the board for years. I would definitely recommend his services if I was looking in the Austin area. And I mentioned last week when we talked, just on the board, even if you're in Dallas, Houston, around the state, even if you need some advice or want to see what's possible out there, definitely give those guys a holler. I'll include Clayton's contact information here under this post. We appreciate Carnley Properties for being our title sponsor here on the Lubbock or Leave It podcast. With that being said, Ben, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, Matt. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'll kind of tell on myself. I don't always listen to the full video or the pod from Level and AD. I'll kind of stop and start sometimes, whether I'm driving or I'm working from home or what have you. But this week, the boys were fired up a little bit. But one thing I took away from, a point that Level had made is it's hard to really not let something like that happened on Saturday affect the rest of your weekend. And I don't even think I mentioned it to you guys, but it was my youngest son's second birthday. So my entire house was decorated in Paw Patrol. I had the whole family over, pizza, cake, adult beverages, the whole 9 yards. And man, you're just watching that game and it's just like, oh. So, I did divert my attention to little man and presents and all that. So I had a little bit of a distraction, but I'm just like Level. Even the next day, Mrs. Claire was like, hey, what's wrong? I was like, man, I'm still thinking about that game, and like you say, every week, luckily, over the past month, we've been able to say, hey, the Cowboys picked us up a little bit. So, that helped a little bit for me. That was my perspective. But, in terms of, recapping the TCU game, I just wanted to keep it brief. I think my overall thoughts are, you've got the tale of two different teams. I know the competition on the other side of the ball matters. But when you've played Texas on the road and now TCU at home, you're just letting gobs of recruiting yards allowed on defense. And, that affects the rest of the game. It affects everything. And I just think that you're getting into the meat of the Big 12 conference schedule, and you're going to face a lot of teams that are going to try to do just that. So there have to be adjustments. Something has to occur. There's too many variables to bring this back to recruiting, but when you're running a 3-man front and you're relying on linebackers to be, very sound and very disciplined, you're really leveraging a lot of things to go right. And, I thought Taylor posted a great breakdown. There's talent there. I think we've seen it, right? West Virginia's running back isn't a nobody. And, you're going to face a lot of other talented running backs. So it's one of those things that's complicated, but it's not complicated, Ben. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you mentioned, adjustments need to be made moving forward. I think the most disappointing thing is I would argue adjustments should have been made after the first play of the game, where they just handed off up the middle and Zach Evans is going for 30 yards. And the very next play does the same exact thing. I just, it's hard to put into words. It's hard to understand, how that happens with the talent that's on this defense. And I think, Hunter and Taylor, we have a group text and we're sending each other, pictures of Keith Patterson's defense from the first year to now. And it looks nothing alike, and I think to me, maybe that's the most frustrating thing is we're in year 3. And you would think by now they maybe, figure some things out. And it just looks like they're still throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. They're still trying new things. And it's just, it hasn't been working. So, yeah, I'm with you. You get punched in the mouth like that and you're like, what the hell just happened? And, Saturday night going into Sunday morning, you're like, man, did TCU really come in here and run for 400 yards?
Yeah. Of all the different scenarios, you wouldn't have landed on that one.
Yeah, it's disappointing. I think the offense overall was fine. I think overall Sonny Comby's actually done a good job with that unit. It's just, they didn't have a chance. Whenever you're giving up 8 0.9 yards a carry, I think. If not exact, it was somewhere up there. That's the game. So, that's my takeaway. And you had a bunch of recruits at the game. That's not impressive. They couldn't have.
Well, I know we're going to get to that, and I've always posted this. I'll just say it real quick. I obviously recruits go on visits where the home team or the team that they're going to visit loses. Is it great? No. Do certain kids wish they were at A&M and Bama every weekend or OU Texas? Sure, right. But there's a chance to see the atmosphere, do all those things. I know that as fans and as folks that cover it closely, we see how brutal that is, but these kids are around football all the time. If they haven't lost a game, then God love them. All that to say, I don't think it matters that much. We are going to get to the recruit reactions. I think the last thing that we'll touch on, when it comes to the game itself, losing's fine. I think I posted this as well. Losing's fine, but these lopsided losses, these games where it feels like things are not within reach. Two things. If it happens again, my Lord, with the red shirt rule of only playing 4 games or under, get some of these guys out there, right? If you're not stopping the run with 3 guys, then get some of these guys out there, get them in the rotation, watch their minutes, watch how much they play, snaps, all that stuff. I know that they have people that do that. Get them in the game. Even if they're not ready, it's going to only get them that much more prepared for the following year, year after, et cetera. I don't think it can stunt your growth, getting some of those snaps in, especially, you're down 35-10 at halftime, 42 to what was it? 20, I don't know, 42-21 at half against Texas, whatever that was. So I know you want to fight, clearly OU showed you could battle and stay in it, but definitely not the same vibe. And if anything, that proves the point. OU puts a true freshman in there, albeit a nationally ranked guy, but you've got those guys too. You got Cam Valdez, Rivals 250 running back, and you were at times struggling at running back, playmaker, et cetera. Get it going. Send these guys out there. You saw very little of your stars, and I just think it's a recipe, to lose most games. But, again, it's funny, I mentioned A&M and Bama. A&M's a team last week on this podcast we would have probably dismissed as falling apart and blah, blah, blah. Who would have foreseen, what happened on Saturday night? So, we always seem to expect the unexpected with one of these Tech wins, and whether that ends up being Iowa State or Oklahoma State at home, I truly do think all the people that are down right now, what will happen is they'll look improved against Kansas. They'll either lose really badly to K-State at home or they'll keep it close. I don't know. I don't see anything there in between. But Ben, as bad as Saturday was, you're 4-2. You beat Kansas, you're 5-2. If you find a way to beat Kansas State at home, right? Who's not, they're good. They're Kansas State. You give them all their respect. But you're at home, right? And they're not necessarily like this top tier program in terms of their wins and the games they've played so far. You get to 6-2 on the season in that, made up scenario. It's hard to be too critical. It's easy to forget those games. It's, people don't like that because you've got friends that went to Texas, you've got Walmart Texas fans, you've got TCU fans, now, and you don't ever want to lose those games in that fashion. But if the coaches can find a way to make adjustments and to focus on the next 2 weeks, you could be talking about a 6-2 team, and that whole other conversation about how the season ends aside, to me, that's not the worst thing in the world, right?
Yeah, Kansas State is 9-1 against Tech in the last 10. So, I feel
So
like
you're saying we're due, right?
They also major in running the ball. We'll see. But back to, we were talking about you want to get into the visitor reactions?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Yeah. So, like you said, I think recruits, they're not as high or as low as fans are based on one game. And they go out there and they see the cool uniforms in the stadium and they get to talk to the coaches. So, I talked to probably 30, 40 kids and they all had great things to say. I wanted to highlight a few of them. First of all, a defensive end from Liberty Christian in Argyle, Devin Strange. He's a 2023. He doesn't have an offer from Tech yet, but 6'3", 215, and he has a couple offers, Michigan being his biggest offer. So, one of these, DFW recruits, I believe Jason Witten's now the head coach over there. And so, I mean, yeah, good for the coaches to bring him out, and Tech didn't offer, but definitely one, with a Michigan offer that you want to keep in contact with, and at a spot that you need defensive end. Another guy, Carson Dean. He's a Rivals 3-star, top 70 player in the country. He has offers from Baylor and Washington. And so, I think one of the posters on our board actually coaches him. So I got the heads up that he was actually going to be visiting. And again, Tech didn't offer this weekend, but he had good things to say, talking to Coach Cosgrove and the recruiting staff. And so, Carrollton, another DFW kid. So,
Right.
Good to get him out. And then the last one, just because I remember talking to this guy's older brother, Zachary Session. He's an offensive lineman from Katy Morton Ranch. He had a brother, Aaron Session, in the 2021 class, who actually made multiple visits to Tech right before COVID. Ended up getting 23 offers, signed with Yale, actually. His brother did, but young Zachary, 6'4", 305. So definitely has the size. No offers yet, but you like to be recruiting at some of these bigger schools. Again, Houston area. So he also had really good things to say with Coach Farmer, and telling him about his technique and what he can do to grow and get better. So those are just three of the guys who I wanted to highlight.
Yeah, I would say overall, I mean, we talked about it a little bit last week, but now seeing the results, I mean, definitely at least 30 to 40 underclassmen in attendance. Not the type of performance you want to put in front of them, but we covered that. I think, Ben, I didn't study it with a fine tooth comb or anything, but you definitely saw some of the big boys. I know you mentioned one of them, the offensive lineman. I saw a handful of defensive linemen. And I saw a lot of guys from programs that are, either on the come up, or, programs that work that recruiting angle, if you will. And that's the name of the game, is getting kids on campus. So I think it's good there. Again, head to the site. Ben did a tremendous job with some of the feedback from these guys. And like he'd said, it's over 30 or 40 different prospects on there. The interesting thing to me, Ben, is when I read those, it's hard to go through the whole thing at once. But as you kind of take it through bit by bit, those are the guys for me, covering recruiting is they will get that offer in, a couple months or after the season. And then you go back and, that is tagged to their profile. You can see what they said at the time. You can ask them what they remember from the game, and we can incorporate some of that into our stories when we write about their offers. But yeah, I mean, a good, if you've got a couple of big home games a year and you can get that many recruits on campus, that's always a big win. I guess what we wanted to round out with is, last week, one of our main topics of conversation was Major Everhart. So not only did you take the big loss to TCU on the field, but off the field, they took your guy. Major Everhart commits to TCU. You mentioned it at the end, that, hey, if it does go a different direction, watch this young man. That young man's name was Gavin Freeman out of Heritage Hall in Oklahoma. What happened? He confirms a visit. I think Major announces Wednesday. He confirms a visit the next day. He gets in town on Friday, announces an offer from the coaches, commits the next day. So again, I interviewed the young man. I can go into detail, but look, I mean, this was contingency. I don't want to use that word. This was a plan where you had multiple prospects, on the line. As the benefit of having these camps, now you've got your second commitment from the state of Oklahoma from the camp circuit. Turns out him and Jocelyn Malaska were 7-on-7 teammates. And it turns out that Freeman's dad and Luke Wells played football together at Oklahoma back in the day. So, not too hard to connect some of those dots. We've got a free story up on the site, really went into a lot of detail with Gavin. But man, I mean, off the top, there's a lot to like, Ben. Grades are good, offers from service academies, previous Air Force commit, about 5'11", 170, true slot guy, kick returner, punt returner, just speed and quickness. I mean, there's not a lot of eval to do here. I mean, that's what he's being brought in to do. Think Miles Price, think Jakeem Grant, think Eric Morris, Danny Amendola, Wes Welker. It literally is the high school that Wes Welker went to. So that really kind of stole most of the conversation on our website. But you first noticed Gavin. So, let me know your thoughts, and then I'll sort of sprinkle in some of the feedback I'd gotten from a few folks in the Rivals Network.
I think the most exciting part from maybe a tech perspective is his potential as a punt returner, just because I think it's been so many years since Tech has had a consistent, punt return game.
Mhm.
And you look at what he posted 4 days ago, his most recent game had 2 punt return touchdowns in the first half. So I mean, and he's doing this every week. You look at his numbers, he's putting up monster 200 plus all-purpose yards a game, returning kicks, receiving, just dominating the competition. And so, I mean, what is it, Oklahoma 3A, I believe? So probably not,
Sure.
right, not the top guys. But again, like we always say, you want to see your commit excel at that level, be the best player on the field. You look at the tape, it looks like he's, running by everyone, through everyone, around everyone, doesn't matter. No one can tackle him. So, yeah, we mentioned this last week. You lose McLean Mannix, Dalton Rigdon. They're both seniors. I believe Rigdon has the option to return if he wants, but either way, you'll need another guy in the mix. And Gavin Freeman, I like that he got the offer and committed the next day. It doesn't matter that Oklahoma is showing interest. He wants to be a Red Raider, shows his commitment, and so that's always a positive too.
Yeah, I mean, really I got a bit of an echo there. Sorry. I'll start again. Really, the last couple of commitments have been like that, Ben. I mean, overall, maybe the last 3 commitments, they've got in, built a relationship, offered these guys. I mean, I think that's the benefit of not racing to 25 high school commits and just offering guys left and right and seeing what happens. I think you have the luxury of seeing how it plays out with some of these guys. And I just, yes, okay, sure, he may play 3A ball, but so do a lot of kids in Texas, and there's not a huge differentiator in how we view them from an athleticism standpoint. And last time I checked, the track size is the same in 3A as it is 6A and all that. And he ran a 10.8 in the 100 meters. So, that's undeniable speed, right? 4.4 in the 40, low 4 in the shuttle. And clearly, when you're the best athlete, you're doing kick returns, punt returns. It's just really interesting to see, you recruit to that position this year. And now you've got Tyler King, who I'm going to Houston tomorrow for work. And I'm going to fit in a little visit to Tyler. So maybe we'll talk about him a little bit more next week. But you've got 2 very similar guys, very fast, very compact slot, kick returner, punt returner types. And so, they're clearly looking to upgrade, replenish at that position. And you saw last week where we talked about all the height and all the size at receiver, but they're mixing it up with some of these smaller guys. So it'll be interesting to see how that, develops long-term. Real quick, while we're talking about Freeman, I haven't had time to put this on the site. But we've worked with Eddie Radosevich and Josh McQuistion at Center Scoop for a long time. So I just dropped them a line on Monday because I knew they were pretty busy with the Red River game and all that. But they got back with me earlier this week, and Eddie is, does a lot of things multimedia for them, but mostly takes video. He's going to send me what he has on Gavin, and we'll incorporate that somehow on the site. But I just said, hey, what are your thoughts on him as a player in the Big 12? How he can fit in. And Eddie said he's the best kept secret in the state of Oklahoma. And he said that he has just one thing you can't teach, and it's his speed. And he thinks that he'll be a guy that everyone looks back and says, how did people miss on him? So he thinks that, overall, a lot of people are overlooking him and that he's going to have a lot of success at this level. And these are guys that cover Oklahoma football, probably closer than you and I cover Texas football, quite frankly. So that's why I went to them, because they know each level, they know all the talent. But Josh, he said he's a huge fan of his game. He said he's such a tough dude. He's the kind of guy you'd absolutely bet on becoming a quality college player. He thinks that with his speed, he has the ability to become a vertical option because he's seen a big jump from his junior to senior year just on tape. But he really just, when it boils down to it, he loves how competitive he is and how he's, really developed into fighting for catches and getting pushed by quality opponents. So anyway, he likes his quick twitch and his speed. I think that's a common theme when you talk about Gavin. So again, just, really a good compliment to a Big 12 offense. And, these are guys that you have to have when you've got Miles Price out there. Some of the other guys like Dalton Rigdon that you mentioned, they're going to go 4 wide, 5 wide. And, these guys can get incorporated into what Sonny wants to do on offense.
Yeah, no doubt. Sounds like a great fit. Hopefully their scouting report was accurate. I mean, that'd be awesome to have, another one of those, top level Big 12 receivers. Yeah. I mean,
It's hard,
I got nothing else to say,
no,
man.
I hear you. Sorry. I know I rambled on there for a while reading those quotes, but I mean, to me, we always, as people that follow Tech football, it's so easy to say Eric Morris, Wes Welker, Danny Amendola, all of that. I mean, but look no further than, look at Hunter Renfrow as a walk-on and his story and how much he was integral to the Clemson offense. Like, sometimes this recruiting stuff that we do isn't all that, scientific or entertaining as we like to think. I mean, some of these guys that are lightly recruited, maybe overlooked, those are some of the guys that develop into some of your leaders and some of your playmakers. And I think, you're seeing that throughout college football right now. Don't get me wrong, the 5 stars, the 4 stars, they'll most of the time, pan out to be these incredible players. But I think especially, just throughout this COVID season and being home and evaluations changing, camps changing, all of that, there's going to be some guys that just for whatever reason, they slip through the cracks. And, he just may be one of those guys, especially understanding, what happened after the camp season and all the additional interest. But like I said before, all 3 of your last commits have been guys like that, where you've evaluated, they've camped with you, and then you've added them as commitments. So that's 9 commitments now, I believe, Ben. We talked about it last week. We both agreed 10 or 11 is that magic number. They had a few 2022 guys, but maybe some walk-on type profiles. Are you still sticking with that 10 or 11 number on the high school commitments?
High school, yeah. I mean, I think they have a few JUCO DB targets, things like that, O-line, but as far as just high school guys, unless I'm missing someone, I can't think of anyone who's, an obvious guy that they're recruiting that's not committed elsewhere right now. So it just makes it tough to just project that.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, I think, it's tough. I mean, even if we lump in like that run of JUCO offers, it was reminding me of that we talked to 3 weeks ago about the offensive lineman is down to like, I think Nebraska or Missouri and Oklahoma State lean right now.
Yeah.
Not even talking about visiting Tech. None of all the defensive backs got like multiple SEC offers, and I haven't seen anything about Tech. So I don't know. I think those numbers are low in terms of who they're going after. But, I think a lot of the focus is really on the games week to week. I think that's always been the plan from a numbers standpoint. And yeah, I'm sticking with 10 or 11. I think we'll see some late targets. I think we'll see some guys, maybe towards the end of this month and next month that maybe they thought that they've been committed to one program for a while and they reopen things, or, we see coaching changes and some of that. So yeah, I mean, we'll keep talking about it week after week, but I think that covers quite a bit. Definitely the highlights were, certainly talking about the game a little bit. Maybe that's not a highlight. We covered the 2023 recruits that were in town. Ben highlighted some of those guys. Definitely check that out on the site. Same thing with new commitment, wide receiver Gavin Freeman. Again, go to the site, free story, a lot of detail there. Ben, I think next week we're going to probably get into, potential visitors for the K-State game. I'd like to dig into where the coaches have been in terms of who they're watching, in game. And then I think both of us are going to be out on the road. We'll talk a little bit more about my visit to see Tyler King. And then what do you have coming up? Do you have anything on the schedule?
Well, 1 week from today, I'm going to be in Cancun, Mexico for my wedding. So
Oh yeah.
we might have to rain check on next week's report, unless you want me to do it from the beach, which is certainly possible.
No, if you asked me if the shoe were on the other foot, I would not do it. But we'll figure out something for our friends at Carnley Properties. I know that last week I did my best model QVC with the Home Field Apparel shirt. But guys, if you made it this far, I did forget to mention code RRS on Home Field Apparel. Retro soft fit cotton shirts. They fit great. I'm a bigger guy. It hides my gut, makes me look 21 again. That's what all the girls tell me. But no, just, some funny, tortilla shirts. They've got the retro tech logos. I always get compliments when I wear mine, and I'm not just saying that. 15% off when you use the code RRS, and tell them we send them your way. Ben, you have anything else before we call it a week?
No, should be an interesting weekend with the Kansas game. We know how much of a struggle that's been. So hopefully they can make it a little easier on everyone this weekend.
I don't think anything is going to be easy for the entire rest of the season, Ben. So I'm going to stop using that word when it comes to talking about the game. Hopefully after the game we can say it looked easy, right? But yeah, going into it, man, well, confidence is kind of low right now. But hey, I think Columbia 2 games under his belt, maybe the third, fourth game, we see some things click. Got to see some things click on defense like we talked about. But guys, we could keep talking about that all night long. For Ben Golan, I'm Matt Clare. This is the Lubbock or Leave It recruiting podcast on RedRaidersports.com. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.